Hey everyone, welcome back to XVolt Tech. Just about 6 months ago, I unboxed my Framework 13 AMD edition on camera. Now, 6 months later, what have I learned about my framework and what are my plans for it in the future? First of all, performance. The Ryzen 5 7640U is a really good processor and was able to run pretty much everything I threw at it. It has an integrated graphics chip, which isn't the best for gaming, but it was able to play Minecraft really well at a consistent frame rate, and it was able to run BeamNG Drive and Teardown at 30 FPS, which isn't great, but it's just above playable. The biggest performance I've ever seen in this laptop, which is mainly what I used it for in the past, is rendering videos. Now, my PC has a very similar processor to the one in this laptop, so they have very similar performance, but this laptop can do a really good job rendering as it goes through decent, sized videos very quickly. I do have a slight video example of that. 5-minute and 45-second video. 2 minutes. Thank you, Framework! I hate old laptops now! Next is battery life, which isn't the best that you can possibly get on the market today, as there are a lot of ARM CPU based computers like the newer MacBooks and now the Snapdragon Plus and Elite chips, which have really great battery life as they are ARM based. But the battery life is decent. I don't have to take around a charger that many places because, well, first of all, USB-C is what the laptop charges with, and many people have USB-C chargers. And plus, I don't have to charge it after a long day. When it comes to this MacBook, which I use sometimes, it pretty much drains very fast because the battery's old, and plus it has a much higher TDP than the Ryzen. When it comes to actually using the laptop, the experience is pretty decent. The 2x3 display is something new compared to the 16:9 and 16:10 laptops that you normally see everyone else using. The screen is very nice and crisp, and I actually did use Arch Linux on this laptop, and I did find out that Windows 11 has a bit of a better experience when it comes to the screen and just using it in general over Arch Linux. There was one issue I did face with this laptop when I first got it, and it was that whenever I'd charge it, it would repeatedly connect and disconnect multiple times until eventually fixing itself. Now, that is an issue that I don't think exists anymore, as I was able to easily fix it with a BIOS update, and I no longer had this issue, and it's been months since I've had it. I fixed it back in April, it's been fine since then, and it charges great. Usually people complain of the laptop fan noise, which I can attest to. This 2012 MacBook Pro has an extremely loud fan, and doing anything remotely processor intensive, especially on such an old system, causes the fan to sound like a jet engine, and I constantly joke about that with people I know. The framework barely ramped up when it came to that. Whenever you'd pull up a YouTube video or a video game, at first the fan would ramp up and then usually calm down, so it's barely even noticeable because it's not blazingly loud. It would only be when you were extreme testing it that you would really hear the fan going, but that's expected. Now onto my complaints. Yes, this is a great laptop, but that doesn't mean it's free from criticism. Firstly, I'm not a fan of the limited ports. Yes, I know the ports are interchangeable, but it is a bit frustrating that you have to go exclusively through Framework just in order to get a new port instead of it being built in or just buying some adapter on Amazon. For example, if you want to get Ethernet on a Framework laptop, you have to buy a $40 adapter that slots perfectly into the laptop. On Amazon, you can go and buy a USB-C to Ethernet adapter for less than half the price, and it will pretty much work on any laptop. Same with the Framework Ethernet, but what would you rather pay, $40 or about $20? And they deliver similar performance. As well as you're only limited to 4 of these ports, and of course, given that you have to use USB-C to charge and you want at least one USB, that basically restricts you to only 2 ports to use, unless you go for entirely all USB-C, and at that point, just buy a MacBook. I'm playing. But on the Framework 16 you do get some more choice. You get 6 slots, but it doesn't come with the headphone jack. which the Framework 13 does, which I can appreciate that, so you don't have to buy an extra audio jack. Next, I've had some weird experiences with the speakers of the laptop, which I've tried to fix on my own, but to no avail. A lot of the time when I'd be watching YouTube videos at a semi-normal volume, maybe even a little bit louder, I often notice that the speakers vibrate in a way that I've not heard any other laptop speaker vibrate, and it often sounds like maracas. And I tried reseating the speakers and everything, but it seems to just be a hardware thing. I haven't actually looked too much into it, so maybe it's just an issue with my Framework and not with anyone else's. The trackpad is another thing I've had a bit of an issue with, because I had noticed quite a few times that if I use the trackpad for long enough, my fingers will actually get sore. It's not a bad trackpad, it's a really good quality, and it's a pretty decent size, but I just noticed maybe it's the material that they used, because my fingers would often get sore. I could feel a lot of friction on it. When it comes to using the 2012 MacBook Pro, I have found to have a bit of a better experience with the trackpad. It feels a lot nicer, it's a lot smoother in the operating system. That just might have to do with Apple's hardware, because they have been good at trackpads for quite a long time. And plus, I've never had my fingers get sore from any trackpad ever. The only time I've had a bad experience with the trackpad was with the HP foldable laptop that I briefly used last year, and the trackpad was just of poor quality and it just wasn't really good. I also had an issue with display brightness. Now, whenever I'd watch videos at night with the Framework and I wanted my brightness pretty dim, it just wouldn't go as dim as I would like. Especially, it didn't have an option like MacBooks do, where you can turn the brightness all the way down and turn off the backlight. And even then, the dimmest setting is pretty dim, and I really appreciated that from MacBooks and such. But the Framework just didn't have that for me, and it was always just too bright, so it didn't make the video watching experience very great. My final consensus: how do I feel about this laptop? It is a great laptop. I love it. I loved using it, and I like it despite the criticisms I had of it. But what am I going to do with it now that I've had it for over 6 months? Well, as I've alluded to in this video, I have switched back to using this 2012 MacBook Pro. The reason is not because I just prefer it more, it's mostly because for my use case, the Framework is too much for me. I don't do enough to really justify the price that I paid for it. So that's my main reasoning on why I'm not going to be keeping it. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to sell it to get a little bit of extra money, because you know I am in college and I need as much money as I can get. And I will be making a video on this either next week or the week after. So be looking forward to that, to see if you can use a 2012 MacBook Pro with no issue. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.